The agreement on rare earth metals with Ukraine has already been made and will be signed soon, stated President Trump. During a cabinet meeting on Monday, he also told reporters that Washington is talking to Kyiv about the potential of American companies owning Ukrainian power plants.
I know that no decision's been made. We're talking about territory right now. We're talking about lines of demarcation. We're talking about power plant ownership. Some people are saying the United States should own the power plant and then work it that way because we have the expertise to fix it up, etc., etc. It's okay. Something like that would be fine with me.
The number of wounded has increased in the city of Sumy. According to the latest figures, 101 people were injured, 23 children among them. This was reported by the Sumy Regional Military Administration. As of now, 14 adults and 16 children are in hospital receiving treatment. The response to the aftermath of the attack is ongoing, with 3 emergency stations deployed to the scene. Rescuers, police, municipal workers and volunteers are all on site. The State Emergency Service reports that its units are continuing to dismantle structures in damaged high-rise residential buildings. They are also temporarily restoring roofs and windows broken by the blast waves. In his evening address, President Zelenskyy stated that a school and residential buildings were at the epicenter of the attack. Fortunately, the school children had sought refuge in the shelter.
Each day like this, every night under Russian missiles and drones, every single day of this war brings loss, pain, and destruction that Ukraine never wanted. The war was brought from Russia, and it is to Russia that the war must be pushed back. They must be the ones forced into peace. They are the ones who must be pressured to ensure security. Thank you to everyone who is helping us in this.
Ukraine and the United States have concluded the second round of negotiations in the Saudi capital, Riyadh. This was reported by the Ukrainian public broadcaster Suspilne, citing sources in the Ukrainian delegation. These talks were held a day after the American team met with representatives from Russia, a behind-closed-doors meeting that lasted about 12 hours. Speaking about the negotiations in Riyadh, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce underlined that negotiations have made significant progress.
There is one thing we're working on, that's a ceasefire. I have nothing to say about what comes after a ceasefire, which has to be manifested in full. And we are close to that. This is what's fascinating. We've never been closer, a breath away from a full ceasefire. And then full stop, then a discussion about an enduring peace.
Meanwhile, Reuters wrote that White House source said progress was being made in the Riyadh talks and that a positive announcement was expected in the near future. At the same time, the Kremlin spokesperson stated that the talks in Riyadh were technical and their contents will not be made public. However, the Russian foreign minister noted that the talks in Riyadh primarily focused on safe navigation in the Black Sea. Ukrainian Armed Forces destroyed 748 Russian tanks over 3 months, stated the Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky on Monday. The commander added that due to the highly skilled work of Ukrainian servicemen across all military branches, Russian forces lost more than 1,500 armored combat vehicles, incurred over 900,000 casualties, over 500,000 of them since the beginning of 2024 alone. For a 7th time in a row, the self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, took the presidential office during the so-called inauguration. The ceremony took place at the Independence Palace in Minsk. In the presence of the country's top officials, Lukashenko placed his right hand on the constitution of Belarus and took the oath in the Belarusian language. Among other things, he promised to respect and protect human and civil rights and freedoms. The so-called presidential elections in Belarus took place on January 26. According to official data from the Central Election Commission of Belarus, Lukashenko allegedly received more than 86% of the vote. However, the election was criticized by the international community for lack of transparency and repression of the opposition. The European Union, as well as Western countries, did not recognize its results as legitimate. Alexander Lukashenko has been in power since 1994. 5 rescued Ukrainian lions stepped out onto UK sanctuary soil, reported Reuters on Tuesday. Rory, Amani, Lyra and Vanda explored their new enclosure at the Lion Rescue Center, joining Yuna, who had arrived earlier in August. The sanctuary was built using £500,000 raised in a campaign by the Big Cat Sanctuary. According to a press release by the animal charity, all 5 of the lions endured unimaginable hardship, surviving an active war zone in Kyiv, Ukraine. Watching them step into their new home was incredibly exciting, and knowing they are now safe made it all worthwhile, wrote the statement. The big cats were experiencing rest for the first time in a specially designed habitat that will cater to their unique needs, ensuring they receive the necessary care and rehabilitation. A group of U.S. senators, both Republicans and Democrats, called on President Trump's administration to transfer over $300 billion in seized Russian assets to Ukraine, instead of only using the interest from these assets to support Kyiv. According to Reuters, they outlined their concerns in a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It was signed by Republicans Todd Young and Lindsey Graham and Democrats Richard Blumenthal and Tim Kaine. The latter questioned the administration's stance on using seized Russian assets as leverage to bring an end to the ongoing war in Ukraine. The senators also asked whether the US and its allies should consider using sovereign Russian assets to encourage a negotiated peace deal. The seized assets were frozen after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, with the US and its allies blocking around $350 billion in Russian central bank and finance ministry assets primarily held in European financial institutions. Denmark will provide 130 million euros to support its company's investments in Ukrainian defense industries. According to the Minister of Economy, Yulia Sviridенko, the Copenhagen government will cover a total of 1 billion kroner, or up to 70% of investments, under a new program managed by the Danish Export Investment Fund. The initiative aims to mitigate investment risks by providing funding. Sviridенko emphasized that Danish manufacturers would benefit from Ukrainian innovations and the opportunity to test weapons in real combat conditions. Russia's shipbuilding industry in the temporarily occupied Crimea has completely deteriorated following successful Ukrainian strikes, reported the Atesh partisan movement on Tuesday. According to their Telegram post, Russia has lost major military orders due to precise Ukrainian strikes, while funding for shipbuilding has reportedly been slashed. Instead of constructing new warships, the facilities are being used to patch up remnants of damaged military equipment in efforts to extend their operational use. Atesh, meaning fire in Crimean Tatar, is a military partisan movement from the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine created in September 2022 after the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. British intelligence considers the attack by the Ukrainian Defense Forces on Russia's Engels 2 strategic airbase, located 600 kilometers from Ukraine's border, to be the most successful strike against Russia this year. The operation was conducted overnight on March 19, 2020. As the British Ministry of Defense published on X, the area struck almost certainly stored a range of munitions that Russia uses for its attacks on Ukraine. The substantial loss will likely disrupt strike operations from the airfield in the short term. According to the statement, the deficit will force Russia to improve its defensive position and begin replenishing munitions stock. President Zelenskyy is set to visit France on March 26 and meet his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron ahead of a security summit. According to the agenda published on the official website of the Élysée Palace, the meeting of the two leaders is planned for 7 p.m. Kyiv time. The next day, March 27, Paris will host the meeting on peace and security in Ukraine. It is expected to bring together members of the Coalition of the Willing, a group of countries prepared to provide Ukraine with security guarantees and long-term support.